This is the Uprising Revival channel. Welcome to today's show. One of the wonderful things about the website is being able to see things shown to me by other people out there that I would never have seen if they didn't share it with me. And Sister Joy, who is a subscriber on the website, always shares great stuff. Everybody does over there. Everybody sees a lot of these things and shares it, which is what's great about the website. And Sister Joy, I'm laughing because it's unbelievable, but this is how this all works, right? Sister Joy shared a cover from The Economist in the year 2012 with the title, A Rough Guide to Hell. And you can see the predictive programming of how all of this stuff is staged beforehand right on the cover of the magazine. Now, over the years, I've covered The Economist many times. There have been many things on The Economist that have come to fruition. There's some things out there you could always look at when they come out, and you could do a breakdown of what you see in them and on them, because you know that there's going to be something that comes true in those quote-unquote predictions of what the future holds, because these things are all staged. So when we look at the cover here, some of the stuff is probably going to blow your mind, because, I mean, it's really just like that obvious, that in our faces, and there's a bunch of agendas on this cover. So the obvious, let's start there. And again, I want to thank Sister Joy for sharing this with me, and I highly recommend anybody out there, if you haven't joined the website yet, you consider doing so. You could share this type of stuff. You could see things like this and share it with other people. It's $2.99 a month, and it is well worth it just to be able to show this stuff, share this stuff, and everybody can start, obviously, breaking away from the hive mind that is, YouTube and everywhere else, where they won't let you speak against all the agendas going on. You could actually point this stuff out, which they don't want you to see. So here we go. We start at the top, right? We can see what's going on right now, perfectly staged right at the top, and it's unbelievable. You see the hummus people on a hang glider, a satanic hang glider, and the other side, you see who? You see that guy Nettin Poo Poo with that star that isn't what you think it is on his helmet. And what do you see them firing at one another with the word wrath in between? But before we get into wrath and everything going on with these two sides, who clearly in this picture are depicted as going to war with one another because they're flying head on at each other and shooting at each other. How about the fact that they're both on hang gliders? Anybody out there familiar with hang gliders? Oh, right. Isn't that how this entire thing supposedly started? Because it supposedly started while people were at a concert, even though if you look at the footage from the concert, it didn't really look like much more than a staged event where people were pretending to dance, etc., then running away. These people supposedly flew in on hang gliders. That's how this entire war, and could potentially be the narrative for how World War III starts, on a hang glider. So what do you think? That's a coincidence when they drew this cover? They were just like, let's just put them on a hang glider of all things. Not airplanes, hang gliders. So we see two hang gliders, the exact way that this war, supposed war, between the land of bagels and the hummus food people begins, right? Above all the other chaos that you'll see below, which I'll get into some of the stuff there. Then, of course, you see the word wrath in between them. So there's a lot that goes into that, right? We know about God's wrath, but the definition of wrath, for anyone out there, it's like, oh yeah, wrath. Well, it means extreme anger. And what are we seeing that the two of these sides going head to head is causing? It is causing extreme anger. The protests that you see all around the world, while a lot of protests are indeed staged, and some of these ones going on college campuses are indeed staged to ignite a spark and division amongst people, there is anger all over the place. The Palestinians are angry. The bagels are angry. People who have nothing to do with this are angry and siding with it. We see Christians now being deluded, or I shouldn't say deluded, that's the wrong word, but falling into the delusion of what's going on over there. Their pastors leading them. They're all angry about it, right? It is getting chaotic, and it's all because of these two sides that have been strategically pitted against each other. People forget, of course, that when we see Nettin Boo Boo in there, and this is from 2012, don't forget that this guy was out of power and recently placed back into power, and everybody, just like here in America, was suspicious as to how he got back in. Because nobody, just like we saw with Biden, nobody knows anybody really who votes for these people. And even if you do, it's a small majority of people who would even vote for these people. They obviously have placed these people, and I covered this in Spain, I covered this in France, right? And then they have these votes of confidence to remove these people. And of course, these people remain in power because they're all puppets of the globalists, as they are, in fact, globalists. So he obviously had to be the person in power to bring this in. And if you look over on the website, I put up a video recently about Biden claiming that if there wasn't a state of Bagelville, they would have had to invent one because this is exactly how they're going to get their new world order. And that's what he was saying. That video's on the website. And in that video, I show you clips of even Netanyahu talking about over and over how they were going to have to attack Palestine first. He says this 10 years ago, how we were going to have to attack them. And then what about people seeing us being the aggressor? And then, oh, don't worry about that because they control the media. So we're seeing all this stuff acted out now in real time, and we're seeing the wrath. We see all the hang gliders. We're seeing these two sides, and they're fully positioned here. And then the title, at the top of this, all of the chaos that's going on underneath it, because that's what's to come, right? A rough guide to hell. They're pretty much saying a rough guide on how to bring humanity into enslaved hell, right? And then some of the other things that we see below there, of course, you have some of the characters who are on the world stage, right? You have Putin in there, et cetera, et cetera. You have China in there. And some of the other things that you need to notice is like British journalists, for example. You see British journalists falling into the lake, falling into the stream. Well, if you haven't been paying attention, one of the narratives out there with the UK and their journalists are about how the BBC is reporting in the Middle East, justifying what the Hamas people are doing. Right, so a lot of the people in the UK are siding with the other side. So they're pretty much doing this by design because remember, like I've talked about with bagel communism that is to come, everything is going to crumble. So you can't fall into the deception of saying, good, I want the government structure to crumble because they're all corrupt. Because there's not like some light at the end of the tunnel. It's done by design. They're making you hate it even more, but they're bringing in something even worse. The same goes with these corporations like I talked about, right? Target. Oh, Target's putting these things out in the stores. I'm protesting this. I'm protesting Bud Light. This is all done by design. Because remember, in a bagel communist world order, not just country, world, because it's all going to be one government structure, everything is state run and state controlled. Okay, you don't own individual property anymore. All these businesses don't exist anymore. It's state run. It's one bank, right? It's pretty much like one giant Walmart, which will probably be Amazon. It's one giant everything. So even the media has to be destroyed. And that's part of the reason that they've allowed this narrative out there with fake news, who's not fake news, who says this, who says that. And obviously conservatives don't believe anything about liberal media and vice versa. You see the liberal mindset towards Fox News and saying that Fox News is a threat to our democracy and Fox News. But so this is done by design, right? So in the UK, you're going to begin to see the destruction of the UK's media. And the same thing's going to happen in America. It's already happening. Everything's going to be like China. China has a state-run media where it's one media, and whatever you hear from that media, that's it. That's all you get. It's state-run propaganda. Now, we could look at it and say, well, it technically is state-run media, but they still give you the illusion, right, with our media, of the left and the right. In the UK, you get the illusion of, oh, are we pro-Pally or are we pro-Bagel? Okay, done by design. So you see the UK media. So some of the narratives out there is how Russia has barred British journalists and ministers for entering the country. Russia doesn't want anything to do with British journalists or UK journalism over there. And now the other thing we're seeing, again, that was from like the beginning of the summer, the end of the spring. They were talking about Russia barring any UK journalists over there. And then the narrative now is switched to, oh, look, UK journalists are siding with the Hamas people. They're siding with terror, done by design. All of it's going to crumble, everything. Like I talk about the Supreme Court, I talk about all the structures of government that we have. They're deliberately sabotaging all of it. And they're sabotaging the media too. Everything's going to crumble and the phoenix is going to rise from the ashes. And everything is going to be state-run, state-controlled. And people are going to believe the narratives coming out of the state-run media are real because they're not going to have opposing viewpoints. They're going to tell you, look, everything was corrupt. We fixed everything. Look, now we have just the state media. They're just going to tell you the actual news. There's not going to be opinions based on who they like as, the politics side of things. It's just going to be state-run and people are going to be fine with it. So they're beginning the destruction of that over there. That's what they're referring to at the same time, pretty much, right? I mean, this started, a lot of it with Russia with the UK journalism, but there's a reason they show you that. There's a reason they show you dumping them all into the pit because they're jumping off ship. They're abandoning it. They're just demolishing that. Then you could even go on and see, I was just giggling because it's so unbelievable. Some of the stuff, like you see a cover like this and people just are like, whoa, wow, what's going on? Oh, it's like a Where's Waldo puzzle, you know? And they just look and like, who's this? Is that Ronald Reagan? Who's that? And then you see like the little things they put in there, which we all of us with eyes to see and ears to hear know where we're headed, right? And look what's right next to Satan. You would see all the minions, the little devils in there. You would assume, the fallen angels or the Satan's minions. And that Satan is the one who's literally standing looking over all this chaos. And what's right next to him? Oh, climate. That climate change thing right next to Satan, right? Where he's got the levers to control and manipulate the weather, right? And to tell people that it's climate change so that he can enslave everyone. Because this rough guide to hell is global enslavement. That's what it is. And then right beneath him, you have all these little minions on computer screens hacking, right? Because that's another thing we're going to see more and more of a narrative about hacking. Right? Because this is how they're going to enslave you. Oh, there's a huge hacking going on. Your bank account's been hacked. Everybody's bank account's at zero. We're going to start over, aka a great reset. Oh, and of course, no one will be able to hack you if you have something inside of you encoded in you because they can't hack you even though everything's inverted, right? So when they tell you that by doing what they say as in regards to the mark and having something inside your body, they'll say that you can't be hacked. But in reality, you're actually hacked. Okay, because they're hacking your genetic structure and your genetic code, which people have already done to themselves without realizing it. So you see them, I'm just laughing because it's so unbelievable. This stuff is always right in front of us, right? And if you know how Satanists and witches and warlocks, whatever you want to call the male version, lowlifes, how they operate, they reveal all of this stuff to us, right? They always show us these things. And they show you pretty much a rough guide to hell. It should say a rough guide of how we're going to bring in hell and get to hell, and all these events happening at once, right? Wall Street crumbling, gluttony, America, with the oil tank, right? With the devil, with the climate change. And then you see all the other little things going on with lust, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. They always do these like little caricature types of things because they know that people just see it and they're just like, oh, that's neat. And they never really break it down or look into it. And these people are never held accountable. They'll just put out an article saying, oh, conspiracy theorists look to a 20. There probably will be some fact checker because channels like mine get followed around. And when they hear us speaking truth and catching on, they just throw their little fact checkers out and they'll say, oh, these people out there think that what they're seeing is this. And they'll give us the real reason of why it was drawn. And they'll be like, there's always been conflict between bagels and hummus, the food. So they were just talking about it then for that reason. And the hang glider thing is just, they'll just ignore that because they won't be able to speak that away. And then they'll just ignore the rest of it. And they'll say conspiracy theorists like to think that everything is written out in advance. Oh, it is. Everything is written out in advance. Right? And when they desensitize you to this stuff and condition you, your brain just automatically accepts these things without saying, okay, somebody's planning this, somebody's planning our demise. And if people don't wake up soon, we're going to wake up and we're all going to be enslaved like we just were, just way, way worse. Way, way worse. Because once the technology's implemented and the technology's mandated, then you're done. Then you really have to infiltrate this system, you really have to think. And I think I'll be able to do that. I've already thought of ways to, but it's not going to be easy for us to navigate, really. It's going to take a lot of work. But again, I mean, you look at the cover and you see some of these things and you see some of these global agendas. I mean, the climate agenda wasn't even, yes, they always talk about it, but it wasn't even like a huge thing in 2012. It was kind of something the libs would always bring up. Nobody ever really got it. And then when they came out with Agenda 2030, which was around 2015, a lot of us realized, okay, they're really going full throttle with the climate thing to enslave everybody. Then they just happened to run that test to see how they could enslave people and if they would follow and obey, et cetera, condition them with giving up their rights and locking themselves in their homes. And that's exactly what the climate agenda is. And nobody out there sees it. The people who do, I see people out there in stores and companies like, we're going to try to be a little bit more climate friendly, etc. And it's just like, these people are so dumb. They are so dumb. They're like, we're not going to use plastic anymore, right? Like the funniest thing to me is the grocery store. Where they're like, people have gone along with this where they're like, they're not going to use bags anymore at the grocery store. And you're like, you're not going to use bags anymore at the grocery store? Yeah, they still like force you into like other bags that are plastic, right? It's really just about the fact that they want to affect your quality of life more by not even giving you grocery bags, making you bring your own in a lot of states. So all these things that they're doing are just ridiculous. But back to the cover here, right? And how they show us the stuff. You might remember, some of you have been subscribed to the videos, The Economist. I've covered I think before the outbreak, I covered it every single year. And then once the outbreak hit, I might have covered it once or twice. But this, if we all actually look at a lot of these covers and go back, like Sister Joy did here, and other people, I guess, out there have, you'll start to see these things and you'll say, wow, that's not a coincidence, right? It's not a coincidence that they're on hang gliders. It's not a coincidence that the word wrath is pointed out right in between them. And yes, they could also be referencing God's wrath, but you also can look at if you look at the definition of wrath, which is extreme anger, look around us right now. Look at what is going on. This isn't just something that they're formulating with fake riots, et cetera, et cetera. This is naturally occurring because Christians are upset, Muslims are upset, bagels are upset, and now even Dems are fighting among Dems, and conservatives are now fighting among conservatives. So we have always seen, right, the libs versus conservative has always been part of how they've keeping us divided. Now we're seeing even a new level. Division within sides, right? Because now we have libs fighting amongst each other over pro this and pro that. And we're seeing the church fighting because a lot of them are completely brain dead to what Bagelville actually is, like I talked about. And this is going to be a very difficult battle for a lot of us because these people have it so ingrained in them, which is understandable, but we have to try to wake them up because now we're talking about our supposed brothers and sisters, which is what they are if they're followers of Christ, who are being deceived, and we don't want to see that. So we have to wake them up to everything. But this just shows you how staged all this is. I mean, it's always been staged. It's just incredible. I mean, it truly is. Just the hang glider thing is the part where you just go unreal, and you see, just the fact that they, because they could have used any one of these groups over, these towel head type groups. They could use any of them. They could have said it's Al Qaeda, right? They already knew it ahead of time that they were going to use the Hamas people, and of course they could have used anything on the other side with that bogus star. But they had to have Net and Poo Poo over there because he's the face to go against that face. And that's why they put him back in power. I mean, it's so obvious, so clear what's going on, but most people just refuse to see it. So I want to thank Sister Joy for posting that over on the website. I appreciate it. Appreciate everything that people are sharing over there. I thought this was pretty incredible. So stuff like this, I love when people share this with me because this isn't, most of the time, I mean, my brain's always functioning. I'm always thinking. I'm always looking back on stuff. And I love it when other people are too, and they're able to share this type of stuff where you can say, yep, look at that. Coincidence? Hang gliders? Isn't that how the whole thing started? Oh, yeah, it is. The word wrath, strategically placed there. Oh, the journalists falling in, the climate, the hacking, Putin. Oh, yeah, it's a giant coincidence. Somebody, what you really should do is one of these fact checkers who we know are going to probably debunk if other people start picking up on these videos, because I don't really get any views anymore, but if other people do, they'll start having to put their fact check out there. You just got to go, okay, so can we get an interview with the guy who drew this? And what was he thinking? What's he say? Oh, well, there's always been conflict with Hamas. Oh, okay, fine. There's always been conflict with that specific group and them, and then hang gliding. I mean, give me a break. How dumb people are, though, because they'll believe whatever they're told. So when they come out and deflect, all they got to do is say, yeah, the guy who took some pills and then drew this crazy illusion up, of everything going on. And everyone would just accept that as an answer. Nope. Right in front of us they're always revealing themselves. So hope to see more people over on the website, have new content going up over there today about some of the unbelievable narratives. I've recently just covered the Bagels Defense Force. They have their own YouTube channel. Some of the stuff they're putting out, it's absolutely incredible. If you haven't seen it and you are on the website, make sure you check it out. And if you haven't joined, you definitely want to join and see some of this stuff. It's incredible. It shows you how staged it is. It's how fake it is. And instead of battling one another, the main focus is to get videos up on YouTube for the military groups. It's incredible. So hope to see more people over here. Thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.